Hello, I'm Clint Walker, and this is Real Estate Appraiser Secrets. Today we're going to be talking about the tax assessor's appraised value and how that affects your lender appraiser or your pre-listing appraisal and their final opinion of value. So first, I want to explain that the tax assessor's appraised value uses a technique of appraising called mass appraising. And this uses large data sets. They're trying to find some sort of realistic value for practically every property for every property in the county, literally every property in the county. And without really going into the property or looking at the actual condition of it, I was under the impression years ago that there was no way that the county could go and physically measure the properties to know what their square footage was. But I talked to one of the actual appraisers who works for the assessor, and he told me that they do measure a lot of them, especially for the new construction. They measure them when they are just framed up. And if you've been to any of my Appraisal 101 classes or my Everything Appraisal class, I discourage you in those classes from relying on the tax assessor's value for taking your professional measurements, because they're often incorrect. That's the measurement, that's the square footage statement that you see when you look at the public record. I discourage you from using that as your statement of square footage on your listing, because they're often not right. Sometimes they're close, but they're often not right. And that's because even if the tax assessor's appraiser is going in to appraise them when they're in sticks, when they're in framing stage, they can't tell what all is going to be completely finished out. Their view of what's going to be done is really limited, and they're also measuring that for only one purpose, and that is for the purposes of this mass appraisal in the tax assessor's office. So, they might be measuring it with a rolling tape measure, so that's not as accurate as what my company does when we do a professional measurement for you. Lots of different options for what they could be doing, and they're doing it for their own purpose. They're not doing it for your listing or for you or for the benefit of anyone else but themselves. And so then once they get that data in, they're using a technique called mass appraising, which uses large data sets to make adjustments and to account for the differences between properties, which they're also looking at from a very high level view. And they're not extremely interested in honing in on the exact market value of the property, because really what they want is like a baseline that they can make their property tax assessment off of, and then in the future they can raise that up as as their needs demand to increase property taxes. Lately a lot of us around here have seen property tax increases, and so that number in this area, historically, as I've ever seen it, is almost always considerably lower than the fair market value of the property. And I think that's fairly common knowledge. So the question of how does it affect your appraisal, whether it's pre-listing appraisal or a lending appraisal, is it probably doesn't. I personally don't look at it. I might look to see as a guideline of what the county thinks the land is worth, because that's an interesting metric for that a mass appraisal could maybe be more accurate in, because the land is less prone to the need for an adjustment based on its condition than a house would be. So I'm interested to see what they give the land value, but also use closed sales and other methods of coming up with my own opinion of land value on an appraisal. But overall, it's not going to affect it. We know it's lower. We know it's performed using a different type of appraisal technique than your lender appraisal or your pre-listing appraisal is performing. And we know it's performed for a different purpose than what we're going to be doing our appraisal for. So I guess as a sort of agent tip, and maybe something that you could, if your client ever comes to you and says, hey, my house is, maybe they got an old house and it needs some renovation, and it's fairly obvious looking at it from the street if somebody's driven by it. They might be getting letters from investors and wholesalers, and a lot of times these people will make offers based on the tax assessor's value, knowing that it's lower, and knowing that's a safe number for them to operate off of for their own interest. But because everybody knows that's lower than the market value, that would not be a great, that would not be in the best interest of your seller probably. So if one of your clients or former clients comes to you and says, hey, I've gotten 3 offers for my house, they're this number and that number seems to work with what the county says it's worth, should I take that? You can sort of have in the back of your mind now that no, let's get our own appraisal on the property, see what it's actually worth, or you can do your broker opinion of value and or broker's price opinion and guide them that way. But you can start from the place of no, that assessor's value is probably too low because it's done just for the purposes of making a tax assessment on the property, and it's done using these techniques that really aren't specific to that property itself. So I hope that's helpful. Sort of a quick video and sort of a narrow topic to talk about, but I get that question every now and then from people. So if I can be of service to you on one of these, like doing a pre-listing appraisal or a private appraisal for somebody, or professional measurement, because I don't want you to use the public record and I don't want you to use your photographer's scanned floor plan, please feel free to reach out to me or find me on appraiserpool.com and schedule one of those services. Thank you as always for watching. I greatly appreciate it. And if you have any ideas for future videos, I'd love for you to drop it in the comments below. Have a great week. Bye.